Hello, Booknerds. Welcome to another Instagram Live. And you all are in for a huge treat because we are going to be talking about true crime. And this doesn't happen, regularly on our page. We are going to talk about this book. It's called the Barabanki Narcos. No, it's not the Narcos you all are thinking in your head. It's something else. It's based in India. It's based in Uttar Pradesh of all places, and it's going to be fun because we are going to have the author himself joining us, and he'll be telling us more about the true crime, of course, but more than that, how he wrote the book. This has happened to him, so to hear everything from the horse's mouth, it's just another experience. So like I said, we are in for a treat. All of you who love true crime, keep patient, and we'll be talking about all the details of the book, how this huge nexus of opium trafficking happened, and how the author, Mr. Aloke Lal, fought it. It was a hard struggle, but he, went through all of that and, managed to come out of it. There was trouble, of course, but I am not going to reveal that. We'll ask the author himself. Hello, sir.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Great. So I was telling everyone that how awesome the book is, and
Thank you.
all of this has happened to you, so that makes it more interesting. And I was telling the audience that this is true crime, so it doesn't get more interesting than that. So let me first introduce everyone to you, and then we'll go forward. Mr. Alok Lal has worked in the IPS and has served in Uttar Pradesh and Uttarakhand, and he has served in the most notorious areas, where people don't usually venture into, be it Kanpur, be it Barabanki, of course. The book is right here. I've been reading this all day, and sir, I must say, Sunday well spent. So thank you so much for this treat. And I mean, well spent for me. Some people don't pick up true crime because they can't handle it, but I loved it, because, and I'm sure that it has happened to you and you have done all this. So it must have been, I have so many questions. Anyways, but I would like to tell you that Mr. Alok Lal is a painter also. It's not only about crime and all. So he's hugely interested in cricket. And I must say, you have started with a six like Sehwag. So let me compliment you because it's your first book, and starting like that, it's just wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you. Sehwag had it 2 triple centuries. So how I wish I follow in his footsteps.
We wish a lot of triple centuries for you, and a lot of cricket references in this, and we'll be talking about that. It is quite at the core of everything, and I loved it because I also share the same love, and so many Indians do. But let me start off with I won't ask you the cliched question why you started writing, because it has been in kind of inside you. You are creative, so that must have happened. But I would like to ask you how tough it is to write true crime, because you've been through it.
First of all, how I wish there was no true crime really. But then it does take place. It also brings into play people like me who are in the cops and therefore have to get into it and face it. And also because for me, the victims are my prime concern. So crime is something which has many of its victims looking for help. So glad that I was in a position to help a lot of them. And now at the stage of my life, if I may say so, after having hung my boots in the service quite some time ago, I thought it's a good time to recall what happened.
I have always followed you online and met you, and I have I've always thought that you are such an artistic guy, and this side of yours, it just came like a shock to me, because after reading the book, I never imagined you like that. Perhaps I met you after your retirement, but tell me something. When the heat is on, and you are under threat, and like in the book, I'll be quoting some stuff from here, which corroborates the same. What is the kind of mindset a police officer has to be in? Because you had a family and you had to, fight these criminals, these drug traffickers. So, what is the kind of mindset that is required?
Mindset has to have a focus for the job you're doing. And if you are focused on the end result, that is to deal with the criminals in a manner that they're not able to harm the victims and the society at large, then you know what you have to do. Talking of the family, of course, the family has to be hugely supportive. They have to understand the job that this man is doing, and the job they should understand doesn't come with flowers. It is basically not a bed of roses. And so they have to accept that the man will be away for inordinate periods. He may be in a foul mood when he returns, short of sleep, short of rest, short of food, maybe short of a bath also. And so when he returns home, the family has to endure so many quirks of the man and so many other unacceptable situations.
In some ways, I thought that this story was, of course, it happened in real. That's kind of scary for me. But you put together a team. It was like an Ocean's 11 before time. I couldn't imagine something like that happening. Just ordinary people helping you out from the area who are pestered by these criminal elements. What was that like, creating that network of informers, which you have mentioned in the book also in particular detail? So a little bit about that.
I think that was, if I may say so, the USP of my success. Why I managed to do this was because I didn't go to the professional informers of police. Now, the professional informers, I've described this in the book also, why they may or may not be the most reliable ones. Okay. They have their jobs cut out. They have seen a lot. They have faced a lot. Sacrifices are many. But when you have a new police officer dealing with you, the police officer has to have people in whom he can place trust. Right. And Rohan, my feeling is that a person who has gone through the other end of the stick, who has faced the problems, who has herself been through the travails that this trait causes to them, put together makes them very reliable. And I think that is what helped me in the end also.
Okay, let's talk about how the big book came together, because it's hard to put a book together in this day and age. You have to kind of write the manuscript, go for a publisher, perhaps a literary agent. A little bit about that, and of course, what was your motive? Because you have achieved everything, right, that a person can in his lifetime. So I have seen there are not many people who pursue a career so seriously after they have done so much in their life. What is the motivation, actually? I really wanted to know.
Ye dil mange more. And thanks to the kind of job I was doing, it was not possible really to find time to sit down and write. Writing does take a lot of concentration. Your mind has got to be in a certain place. And that place was not available to the mind during the job. The other is that if I can write, I should write. This is what I thought. People told me that you've been writing articles, as you might be aware, Rohan. I have written a lot of articles which keep appearing in newspapers and magazines. So somebody told me that since you can write, why not write a few of your experiences, in which my family, my wife, Madhu, and my son, Manas, were both instrumental. They told me that you will write this. They even identified the subject of the book.
Wow.
They are the ones
Wow.
who said, this is a story. Why don't you write about this? And even till today, whenever I am writing, there are many things which my wife recalls which I don't. And so it's almost like a family enterprise to begin with, and then one gets down to writing. So this is
Yeah.
how the book comes about. So it's not exactly a new career; it's a
Yeah.
new format of the career.
Okay. Okay.
And with the help from friends like Manas, it is possible to do it more frequently now.
I interacting with so many authors over a period of 5 years. I have never come across this statement that it's a family enterprise, and this is the first.
No,
This is the first.
the other thing I must tell you is about my agent, literary agent. The book bakers is the literary agent, and it is run by a very smart young man, Suhail Mathur. So
Yes.
Suhail Mathur was also one of those, and his father is a partner in that firm, the founder of that firm. So those
Yes.
two got after me that please write stories. So they suggested a few other stories about which they know that I have gone through those since I was in the dacoity-infested area. So they know a lot of dacoits I dealt with. So that is how started suggesting ideas to me. But this idea came only from my immediate family. So I'm thankful to book bakers who were able to get a huge publisher like the company that has published my book, HH.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
to start with this is not a bad start, really.
It's a brilliant start actually, and so many to be writers aspire to reach Hachette and others at the same level. I would like to talk about a little bit about you mentioned that ye dil mange more. So you have in the book mentioned a lot of code books that was spoken over walkie talkies during these when you were hunting the criminals. Of course, you wanted to do the busts, and you have mentioned that bago mein bahar hai, one that's one code word that you used, and it was kind of a comic relief between such crime, but
They were actually, these were the code words actually used.
yeah.
And yeah, so uh, good that you find them interesting and
It's super. It's super. And nobody can understand these. I mean, when something like this is happening over a walkie-talkie, even if it's somebody intercepts it. I mean, I don't know how, but it's crazy.
I can also thank my love for Hindi songs for this because in
Yes.
those days, this film Aradhana was
Yes.
very popular, and these songs were big hits, and
Yeah.
so everybody knew these songs. So I didn't have to tell a Jagdambala Shivastav or a
Yeah.
Sabdarasa
Yeah.
what it means.
Yeah. Tell me a bit about Hassan, because he's at the core of this story. It kind of, he's the at the center of the plot, and even in the epilogue, you have mentioned him, and it's if I'm not wrong. And tell me more about him, because you have mentioned there that the story came out, and you met him later on also in Lucknow at the Charbagh railway station. So tell us a little bit about that relationship and how it is significant to this story.
Actually, Hassan, as I've written in the beginning of the book also, these names are not the real names. I had to change them because they could not have been exposed to certain individuals. So a lot of these names are not real names. But in Barabanki, I was quite surprised to see that there were quite a few young cricketers who had been trained at the sports college in Lucknow.
Yeah.
So these trainees of Sports College Lucknow were A, good cricketers, and B, most of them were very young, in their teens or some of them in early 20s. So they wanted to continue playing the game, and
Yeah.
I was very keen on joining them. So I organized summer camps for cricket volleyball, basketball, and hockey. So this was one way of getting through to the public at large. I think police officers who are leading a police force in a district should develop methods of getting close to people. So this was my way of doing it, that I'll have these cricket and other games camps. Now, in these camps, these boys used to come. And I had coaches of my own to come and tell them about the improvements they needed in their game. And with them, I used to participate in tournaments. I became a member of the district team also. And so that is how I came to know Hassan. Okay. Hassan was one of the many Hassans who were there like this. So he's, in a way, an example of what kind of people came close to me because of the game. I had my own motives, I must tell you, the professional motive of finding reliable sources. So this is what happened, that these people were looking for somebody who could patronize their cricketing talents. And I was one who wanted to join them for cricket, as well as from them take out some work which ultimately could be useful in my profession. So this is how it happened. So Hassan was a particularly well-behaved, bright young man, and he took to me rather well, very close. He used to come to me other than cricket time also, talk about cricket most of the time. So cricket matches were going on and all that. The World Cup had been won by India only recently, so everybody was on a high. 1983 was the World Cup, so everybody was on a high about cricket in India. And so we used to talk a lot about those things. And as you know, in India, all of us, you and I and everybody, are great critics of the game. We know more about cricket than, say, Virat Kohli does. Usse kya pata hai, type. So all that happens, and ultimately, these things bring us very close. Yes. The closeness grows. This is what happened with Hassan. Hassan I met accidentally again, as you have mentioned, when I was much older, and at the railway station I had met with a small accident. He helped me out. Then he saw my paint brushes, and that is how we connected, that he connected that I could be the Lal, Mr. Lal he knew. Hassan continued to be a person who was in touch with me. Even today he is in touch with me. Yeah. And he keeps telling me about what is happening in Barabanki, and so on. So these things continue to be, it's almost a lifetime association. Once you develop a source, you have to really look after that source. One is the safety factor of the source, because that person can come to harm. And the other is that in order to maintain the level of confidence between the two, there has to be a constant interaction. So I wanted to put, the entire drug cartel and the drugs that were being, transported out of Barabanki to places like, I think so, were they going to Pakistan and the West also? If I'm not they were mostly headed for Punjab. From Punjab, they would cross the border also to the West. Okay. So this was one route. The other route was through to Nepal. So in which case they used to travel eastwards from where we were, and they would go via Ramnagar and Bahraich and such into Nepal. Barabanki itself, I've been there. I've been from those parts. At least from my grandfather and grandmother's side, I know a little bit about those areas, and you have talked about the kind of unemployment that is prevalent there. And because of this, a lot of youth has perhaps, people like Suresh that you have mentioned in the book, who were great sports persons and had, they were attracted by, this quick money. So has the situation improved over time? What is happening on that front? See, of late, things have improved, not sufficiently, but to some extent. Okay. For one thing, the opium trade is in much better control than it used to be.
Right.
So the catches that we made had broken the back of this trade at that time. And when I go to Barabanki now, or I have
Yeah.
been going in the intervening years,
Right.
people have told me the good news
Okay.
that those interventions by the police when I was posted there had an impact which lasted.
Okay.
And so the opium trade has gone down to a trickle now. So this is the best thing that could have happened. So this
Yeah.
avenue, which would have attracted unemployed youngsters to it,
Right.
has now dried up,
Yeah.
more or less. And secondly, the good thing is that a few more industrial setups have come up in Barabanki. Because as you know, Barabanki is right next to Lucknow.
Yeah.
And Lucknow has its own limitations. And beyond a point, you can't really overstuff Lucknow with things. So the adjoining districts like Raebareli on one side or now on another, and these districts are therefore getting the industries that they should have got long back in any case. So this is what is happening with Barabanki also. And so Barabanki and other districts close to Lucknow have better potentials now for employment.
Right. My question to you is that in one point in time in the book, you have mentioned that there was a life threat. I mean, there was a bomb planned to harm you and your family, of course. So tell us a little bit about that, because that must have scared the entire family also. And the of all people, I mean, not even people, sheriff comes to rescue. So tell
Yeah.
us a little bit more.
Oh, that is an episode from the book which I love, obviously, in which there was a canine friend who helped. Actually, Rohan, two persons names are there. One is Ayub, the other is Lal Bahadur.
Yeah.
These were introduced into the retinue of servants who were working
Right.
in the campus of my residence. As you are aware, the campuses in UP in which SP's residences are have a lot of land in them.
Yes.
So conditions permitting, these lands are used for cultivation of crops.
Right.
So that is what I was doing as well. And so some outsiders, some contract was given to somebody who had his people working there.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
contractor had hired these two people
Right.
without knowing that these people were actually planted for a purpose. And the purpose was to blow me up. You would have seen smithereens of Aloke Lal today, not Aloke Lal himself in that case, had they succeeded.
Okay.
Luckily, the sniff of the crime came to me through my sniffing friend, that is Sheriff. Sheriff became a little alarmed by the presence of explosives,
Right.
because that's a smell which dogs can identify as being different from what they're normally habituated. We would take a walk. He would be with me every morning
Yeah.
for several months. He was there. But on that particular morning, he led me to a godown where all this was found.
Before I get into more questions about the Barabanki Narcos, let's get your partner in crime, because this is a crime book, and your partner in crime in this, and of course the novel that's coming up, the Kanpur Inferno. We would love to know about that.
That's not a novel. That too is true crime, by the way.
True crime, yes, true crime, of
True crime.
course. So we would love to know more about that, and of course,
Okay.
I would like to invite Manas Lal. Manas, Manas is an artist, and he's a lot of other things. One of those things is he's an artist. He's a brilliant artist at that. He's a writer. He writes in so many newspapers. He's a columnist, and he's a singer. He plays the guitar. I mean, he's a multifaceted personality, just like his father. But what's exciting is that you're co-writing the next book, the Kanpur Inferno, and that it's super amazing, because for the first one you were in the background, kind of. You were involved in the cover. I would like to show the cover again. And these illustrations, guys, you see this hatkadi you see, and at the back also there's this little illustration. Manas has done it, if I'm not wrong, and
Even
really
my
worked it.
photograph. Even my photograph at the back of the book is
Oh
his
yes,
clip.
oh yes, I forgot. photographer also. So, it's so tough to do all these things together. But, I would like to give you credit for, bringing out this story also, as sir also mentioned that you pushed him to bring this out. And that was amazing. And you are co-writing this book, The Kanpur Inferno. Tell the audience a little bit about what's going to happen on that count. How is it shaping up? What's happening there?
So as far as the Barabanki Narcos is concerned, yes, I was working in the background, and actually, my father's threshold for what is criminal and when a crime becomes big is much higher than normal people. So he never thinks any story is worth telling. So unless there's a proper bloodbath involved, he's like, "Ye to kuch crime hua hi nahi." So when I used to see the news in which it used to say 25 kg opium pakda gaya, and it made national news. So I was just discussing things with him one day, and he says ki we had a 1300 kg haul in 2 years in Barabanki.
हाँ, वो मैंने 450 तो 2 बार मैंने पढ़ा ही है, मतलब बुक में।
So I said 1300 kgs has to be a world record. This is, I believe it was. So I said, then this is a book. Why are we not writing about this? So he says, अच्छा नहीं, कौन पढ़ेगा? So that is where actually the journey started, And I told him, okay, let me get in touch with the agency and let me try and find, the way how we get this through, because I know that he can write and I also write myself. So I was very happy that this book happened, and the way it has been received is one of the reasons I am so encouraged to write now. And I'm glad that we are being able to collaborate on a true crime project, because being an artist, and in my case, I'm an out-and-out artist. So for me to write a true crime book is not the easiest thing. But I think where I come in is that my father, for 37 years in service, has seen and read more FIRs than anybody else. So he has a very clear sequence of the crime in his head, right? When did the crime take place? How did it happen? People want to read a book which engages them, and there's a human element. So I know that part of the book in Kanpur also because I was present in Kanpur.
Right.
So we decided that it makes a lot of sense for me to join. And also I must confess that I did a lot of reading, and a lot of the chapters which are history oriented in this book. That's also one of my contributions to the Kanpur Infernos.
You have touched upon the politics in the fag end of this one, and I think you are kind of taking it forward. And this could be kind of it's a franchise, right? I mean, it's a whole world out there, and I'm just shocked that I think so, sir, didn't consider a crime like this to be a book. It's kind of it's modesty. I don't know what that is, but it's amazing that this book is coming out. How is it shaping up? What is the writing style? A comment on that?
Interestingly, Rohan, when I read a part of the book, I keep going back to whether this is written by me or by Manas, because while Manas has a very different style of writing and mine is different, but when we work together, somehow it really is an interesting thing that our writing styles are also very similar in this book.
Yeah, I think so. Just like music duos, when they come together, something different happens, but individually they are quite different when they are apart. I think so. Co-writing is a very difficult skill to achieve, and if you have pulled it off, I am looking forward to that. And great that you have completed the manuscript. Tell me something. Which part of co-writing was most difficult for you? Because this is a first venture.
I must say kudos to Manas. All the difficulties were surmounted. The initial difficulty was that indeed was that I did not remember a lot of things which happened. And so he had to tell me, khod ke nikalo, yaad karo, kaise tha, kahan tha, kya tha. And luckily I have a partner, a third partner in crime. So she was telling me wherever I was missing the details. So put together, we could recall enough of those days to be able to bring out a book. So I must say, जो सबसे बड़ी difficulties थी, उनको surmount करने में पूरी family ने बहुत मदद.
And if I may add to that, Rohan, so he was seeing the book from a cop's lens. He was the one tackling the crime,
right?
And I was seeing it from the lens of the cop's family, which is a very different perspective to the same story.
Right.
And both of us have an inherent, sensitive side in which we look towards the victims of crime. So I think that is where we come together. So because we blend different perspectives, I think it works. And you said something very good here that, while we have different writing styles, but it's like composing a song. So when a duo or a trio, a musical trio comes together, so we have different notes in our mind, but they form a symphony and it kind of works. So when he sings Jane Ja, I'm the Asha Bhosle doing in the background. So it kind of adds in. So,
Beautiful.
It is certainly not jazz and Carnatic music coming together. So it is very similar music, and so it is coming together.
although jazz and Carnatic is an interesting blend, but yes.
Great fusion. I must say, I'm really looking forward to this and more. Please comment on. There have been so many news stories about the book. Of course, Barabanki Narcos, that it is coming out as a web series. How is that shaping up? Because we are, I mean, at least all the Dunites are super stoked to hear that, and we are looking forward to that.
I am so glad that people have taken notice of this news. Yes, indeed, a book becomes far more popular when it is told on celluloid. So good that it is going to be there on the OTT platforms. And luckily, these days, that's a very, very popular medium. So it's going to reach a lot more homes than just the book does. So what is this? The other excitement is that we keep hearing from the producer that this has happened now and that is happening now. And a little time from now, that is going to happen. So all these developments, first time for me that my book is being adapted into something like that. So for me, it is exciting. And Manas, I'm sure, is starting his career with this, so a lot will happen in his life.
I have mentioned it, I think so before also, on a personal level, that I would have really liked for Sir and perhaps you to make appearance in the same. I mean, because why not? I mean, Mr. Ruskin Bond has done it, so why not?
I don't know, Rohan. I mean, writers don't really have so much of a say, perhaps, in the final movie. But let's hope it happens, because Ruskin Bond is a different level of writer. So he's a national icon. So maybe someday we'll have that kind of pull. But as of now, all I can say is that as far as the Barabanki Narcos is concerned, one of my favorite gangster movies to come out of India is actually Gangs of Wasseypur.
Yeah.
And so the makers of the Barabanki Narcos, the production team is the same. So that is something which really, which has really got me going. So I know that they can perhaps do justice to the content, since it's based in UP. And so let's see how they do it. I'm sure they'll do a good job. And yes, I completely agree that the visual medium is a very popular medium, and often a lot of books gain more recognition once they are on screen.
Yeah. So you have mentioned that the emotional side of it, the victims. You are attracted to those stories, and that are at the core of these true crime stories. So there were so many victims in this book, and Sir has, of course, addressed a lot of these things, especially drug addiction, and how people can really come out of this and lead a good and honest to God life. So how do you have something to say about that? Because a lot of people now, especially youngsters, get attracted to all this.
Well, see, Rohan, apart from writing this book earlier, for several years, for 2 decades plus, I have been actively involved in spreading the word that drugs are something that you should shun, and for which I have held over 250 workshops in various schools. And I address the students as well as the faculty. I have called their parents also, the children's parents, and I have called people like the chemists who were selling drugs, drugs of the legal kind which were being abused by children. I have called stationery dealers who were selling things which are inhaled by students, especially that whitener. That is a very popular inhalant among the. So all these things I used to call them, have a word with them, and we also tightened screws around these things. that let us see if we can stop the chemists from selling the harmful stuff. Can we control the way things are sold at the stationers and so on? So we did this. So we made awareness one of our tools to fight this problem. So what was this? The other is that I've been invited to a lot of such efforts by NGOs and clinics and so on. My only request to all youngsters watching this is not to be lured by the glitz of it all. It may look very attractive, but the end of it all is extremely sad and tragic.
Actually, one of our author friends has just joined this session, and he said something very nice when he read the Barabanki Narcos.
Right.
Siddharth Nirwan is his name. He said that "Zindagi mein dam hone mein maza hai, dam marne mein nahi."
Right.
So that is something I would really like to say. And also, as you said, Rohan, he made a very good point about continuing to work with the victims of crime. But when I was looking at the Kanpur Inferno as a book, the dimension of the crime is immense. There, an entire society is plagued. Political games, and apart from that, the general how hatred takes root is in itself a study. It's not so simple. Usually, people have a very straightforward and cut and dried image of riots or wars in their head. That two people don't like each other. Say, for instance, Hindus and Muslims don't like each other, so they get into a fight. But there is so much which goes on in the background, and there is so much which is done to make communities and people fight with each other. Because at the end of the day, all of us are people, and we would rather remain safe and keep our families safe. So why these things happen is, of course, a big driving factor, and that is why when you see victims of events like this, where property worth millions is lost, but more importantly, several lives are lost for absolutely nothing. You can't help but feel for the victims, because knowing the inside story and often suffering at the hands of the inside story, and knowing that your father is going to get transferred very soon because he's doing the right thing, it's not easy. By the time I was in class 5, I had changed 7 schools till I came to St. Joseph's. And after that, of course, then he was senior enough to continue in Dehradun, and we do not have similar problems in this stage. But in UP, the political climate, apart from the societal climate, is such that it's very conducive to crime, and so you live around victims of crime. It's hard to find people who have not been the victim of one or the other crime.
Ron, one thing that we will be able to achieve through this book, at least those who read the book will get the message that communal riots are primarily the handiwork of people who have vested interest in creating those riots. This is primarily around elections. This is primarily a political game. Dividing people on this or that basis is the issue at heart. So this is the problem with communal riots in India, and therefore it is important to tell the general public that what lies underneath. I hope that the book that we are writing will answer a lot of these questions.
I'm sure, sir, that will happen, because even with this one, you have not, you have not missed any words in saying anything about the politicians. So I was super happy of that, because a lot of authors tend to kind of, gloss it or, make it sugary, but you haven't. And that I'm so happy for that. And I'm looking forward to...
This is the scenario run after a lot of self-censorship. So, this is after him censoring himself.
Rohan, I must tell you that as a person who was serving, you are almost like subservient to the needs of the government of the day. But I was known to tell my political bosses that no, this cannot be done. This is not right. This is illegal. This is not acceptable in society. Don't make me do this. So I kept running into politicians who would not like being told like this.
You are a rebel then. I mean, you were always a rebel. But how does a rebel survive in this, huge nexus? I mean, this is my penultimate question, but it's a huge question because a lot of police officers right now also must be, kind of going through it.
Rebel is a strong word, yes, but there were a lot of occasions when I did not agree with what the political bosses wanted me to do. At times, even my bosses, like the DGP of the state, would tell me, "यार आलोक, इसमें बड़ा important matter involved है. इसको जरा can you look the other way?" And in a particular case, it so happened that there was a murder in which the DGP wanted me to look the other way, and I was insisting that the right person should be booked. I was on the scene. The situation was such that the murderer was so strong that the police station staff had run away. Want to be present at the police station to be forced to write against that particular murderer. And so when I did not show enthusiasm for collaborating with my DGP to sort of put this under a carpet, he sent my immediate boss, an IG level officer, I was then a DIG, the IG level officer came to the spot from another district. He traveled all the way to this district, 180 kilometers, to tell me, "Yeah, Alok, ruk jao, kyun likhwa rahe ho?" But luckily, by the time we reached, the case had already been registered. And almost 28 years down the line, I'm glad to tell you that case is alive, and that very powerful man is facing the heat from the courts. So this is the that he did. So you should say what you feel is right. You should.
Yeah. So I would like to ask the dream team, if I can name it that, that of course the second book is coming out, but what is your kind of vision for this? I mean, you're writing, self, I mean, you delve into a lot of spaces, you paint and, etc., etc. But writing takes a lot of time also. So what is the aim of this dream team going forward, like 5 years, 7 years, whatever?
Manas is still seeing a lot of dreams. So let him answer this.
Okay. So Rohan, actually, the first thing which made me very keen on this is the opportunity to collaborate with him and my mother also, because she's also a partner in crime. So it brings us closer as a family.
Throughout in this one, I mean, I could find her in so many key moments. She was right there.
Absolutely. So as far as the selfish reason is concerned, I would like all of us to come closer as a family. That is always a bonus. But the reality is that I have seen a lot of victims of crime growing up in a police wala's house.
Yes.
And people are very helpless when they come to the police. Often people don't know what the jurisdiction of the police is. और कोई भी तकलीफ होती है तो देखकर बहुत दुख होता है. I know that the criminal justice system in this country needs a lot of reforms. Right. And that is one of the reasons we are writing these books. And I also feel like unless true stories are told without mincing words, society never really gets direction in terms of how to break the nexus of hate, which, let's be honest, does surround us all the time. And actually, the country and the world at large actually struggles in this respect. And so the basic point is to tell stories of people and to make people come together via the medium of a book. I know it's a big dream, because I know that there are a lot of people who don't necessarily read literature, but the word does reach them. I firmly believe that, somebody picks up a book, they think about it, they absorb something subconsciously, it comes, it becomes a part of dialogue. Then if it hits the screens, maybe if it is made into a web series or a movie, then the conversation becomes larger. And so a lot of factors come into play, and ultimately societal change through any art form is the reason you write or paint or sing. Because, when I say that independent music these days is the best form of music, I say that because it's not driven by commerce. It's driven by purpose and heart. So that is, I think, at the core of our collaboration.
As for what is the objective of writing these books, I have another objective. Now, you have read this book. About this, some of the critics in the newspapers have written it, have said that this book should be read by the youngsters in the police service. is that this should become a compulsory reading in the academies.
Yes.
This should go to the entrance to the administrative and police services. Now, the idea is that this is my method. This I developed, and this I tried, and there was success at the end of it.
Yes.
So all these things were tried. These were new methods, and the novelty of my methods is not known to people unless it is told to them. And I cannot give them a dry and very unreadable report, which most government reports are. So this particular way of telling the story will hopefully help a lot of youngsters to devise their own ways of dealing with problems in their jurisdictions. The second book will also likewise be a book which youngsters will like to read in order to learn from my experiences.
Right.
And his modesty might not permit. Yeah, his modesty might not permit him to say this, but the book is already in the libraries of all those institutions he's talking about.
Wonderful.
So that's a wonderful thing that has happened. So it has gone to Missouri, to Hyderabad, and even abroad. It's in the UK, it's in New Zealand, it's in Australia. So it has really gone to.
The first time I saw Saurabh Dwivedi interviewing that video, the London talk. And I was like, I got up and I was like, yeah, I mean, because I didn't expect that. I mean, it's a huge platform. And I think I messaged sir also after that I am watching your video and I am so super happy. And we have always, wanted so many good authors to come out of Dune, especially because, I mean, what's better than Dune? Let's be honest. So,
You also couldn't agree more, Rohan. There couldn't agree more.
Yes,
Dune has a lot of good writers.
Yes, a lot of good writers, and the great Irwin Allen Seeley has mentioned praises for you in this particular book. And another thing that my last question, of course, once you have written the book, what if what happens, because a lot of people are trying to write and go through publishing process. What happens if you write a book and then it doesn't work out and, you have to move to the next one perhaps? What happens then, I know that you haven't gone through it as such. It might be sounding negative, but a lot of people might, get demoralized by that. So what do you say to that?
I think getting demoralized is not at all the right thing to do, because if you know you can write, you should also know that one day somebody will publish it. There are authors like J.K. Rowling, for instance, who was rejected most of the time until she finally got somebody to print it. And today she's such a big deal. So what I'm trying to say is that there's no point in getting disappointed. You will find your publisher one day. You will also get your Bloomsbury one day to come out with those wonderful Harry Potter books. So that happens. That will happen.
And I'll just add to that, Ron. I think what you meant was, what if the book doesn't succeed? What I want to say is that, I think what helps us here is that both of us have been sportsmen and have played cricket.
Yeah.
So you make a duck in one innings, but that doesn't make you a bad player. Right. And that duck is not necessarily reflective of your talent or the quality of the book. For instance, some of the best books I read last year were books of fiction, which never made it to any bestsellers charts. True. They had big publication houses backing them. They had everything going for them. The language was excellent. In fact, I do not believe that even Avni Doshi's book, which later went on to, get published overseas and also got nominated.
It wasn't in the bestsellers.
Was not in the bestsellers list. So, you should never get demoralized as long as you believe in your content. It's like any creative form. Some people like a movie, others don't. And, maybe a film which is not accepted today can become a cult classic tomorrow. Tamasha being an example, for instance. Right. So this happens with Swades is another example.
Right.
So, yes, commercial success is one part of it. I mean, selling copies is one part of it. But knowing to put a story out there is a very big satisfaction in itself.
Yeah, indeed.
One other thing, what is your favorite review of this book coming from, any quarter? One review each?
See, this is a tough question in the sense that
that's why I asked it.
wherever there is praise, I like that review. but then I have to weigh the praise again. कि ये 9 out of 10 है या 8 out of 10 है, that
Did you
kind of
get any
thing.
negative ones? Did you get any negative ones by any chance?
No, not at all. No negatives. Actually, this is a surprise for me because this is my first book.
No, but I'll add to this. So we got a negative reader review, which is my favorite review, because it says that I picked this up thinking that Jeffrey Archer has written this, and then I suddenly realized it's not him.
Oh my God.
And so for that we got 1 star. So I think that kind of took from the 4.7 and brought it down to 4.5 on Amazon.
No, but then coming to the reviews, I think my favorite review in a well-known newspaper is one which has appeared in the New Indian Express. It is detailed. The writer of the review has understood the book very well and has commented on aspects which were important in the book. So I think the one which appeared in the New Indian Express is something that gives a good idea about the book.
My favorite review is, so on a serious note, is the one which came out. Actually, it's not exactly a review, but it's a set of books which the Hindustan Times published, which tells you how to see the history of India through chronicles of crime. And this book was very prominently featured, and they wrote about what they liked in the book. So that is something which I found, wonderful, that the 80s are being documented using the 80s of UP are being documented using the Barabanki Narcos. So that was a massive compliment.
That's a great feat, because I have read a lot of books about 1984, the Sikh riots last year. But this was another, this was also happening, right? And I didn't know about this world. So I'm glad that I read this book. I would encourage everyone to pick up a copy, read this book. You won't regret it. Trust me. And go leave your review, positive or negative. Go to Amazon, give it there, give the review there. And thank you so much, Manas and Alok sir, for joining me. And, it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. And looking forward to the Kanpur Inferno. Can't wait for it. And the web series, of course, that's coming up.
Yeah, thank you very much, Rohan, for this exposure. This is a wonderful opportunity to speak to a lot of people through you. And I'm sure those who pick up the book now will give me new light into the way I should improve my
And a big thank you to the Booknerds, I must say, for all the work you do. You're one of a kind as far as Dehradun is concerned. You have given a common platform to a lot of authors. And I love the spirit with which you promote everyone, because that is how we can thrive. The only way to thrive is if we come together as a community of people. And so, Rohan, I think you and Neha both embody that spirit. And thank you very much for having us.
Thank you so much. I mean, we are just trying hard to do whatever we can for the written word. And don't forget this one, guys. Go grab a copy.
Oh, yes. And we also have one here. So.
And thank you so much. You signed it for us. So thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All the best.
And looking forward to more from you. Thank you so much.
Cheers, Rohan. Thank you so much.